does AI pose a threat to the industry?
AI is a technology which will help us evolve and change how we operate as a society.
Hello there, I'm Sam Sadhwani, and this is Speaking of Money, a GoTyme Bank podcast where we have beautiful conversations with the brilliant minds of today. And with me now is the EVP and Chief Business Officer of Concentrix Philippines, a global technology and services leader and the nation's largest private employer. That's quite a feat over there. Let's welcome Amit Jagga. Thank you so much for being here today. I know you're very busy, so I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for having me, Sam. Appreciate it.
So first and foremost, let's get to know you. So how did you end up here in the Philippines, and where did you grow up?
I was born in a small province in India, northern part of India, and then moved to the capital, which is New Delhi. So I was largely brought up in the capital. Joined the BPO industry when it was in its infancy in 2000. So I've been working in this industry for the last 24 years. Great experience. About 8 years ago, I was mandated by my boss to come here to the Philippines. Growing up in Asia, I always thought that I would go outside of Asia if I have to migrate, else I'll just be in my home country. And I resisted it a lot. I said, no, I'm very settled in my home country. Why should I be going to a foreign country and all of that? And in hindsight, I was such a stupid. It's just so amazing to be in this place. It's been, by all means, financially, personally, it's been such an amazing experience being in this country.
So you said you were mandated to come here, but what drew you to the Philippines initially?
So Philippines, to my mind, initially was all about the great beaches and going 8 years back, I was a little bit younger, so it was all about partying and it was all about, having fun in the country. But as I came in, I realized that Philippines is a lot more personal relations. It's a lot more about culture. It's a lot more about really being very friendly and hospitable to the outsiders. So really loved the place.
I'm curious to know, as a foreigner coming in, you said we're very friendly, but what was your first impression of Filipinos? What struck you the most?
There is so much empathy in this country. There's just so much empathy. Like even small things like when a foreigner is talking and you're in a group of Filipinos and you're the only foreigner, how would all Filipinos go out of their way to speak in English so that you don't feel out of the place? It's a small gesture. If you go out in probably 80% countries in the world, if there are a set of natives, they will speak in their native language. This is, a small way in which how this place really differentiates itself, because it's about the empathy to the outsiders.
That's very nice to hear and makes me very proud to be a Filipino for one. Are there any habits that you picked up from Filipinos? You've been here 8 years, you said.
I think the biggest habit that I've picked up is to sit back and relax. When you grow up in a place like India, which has got 1.3, 1.4 billion people, you get used to running very fast all the time. And the Indian culture generally is a very fast-paced culture. And one of the things that I realized coming to the Philippines is that, sometimes it's not just about just moving fast, it's about taking a step back and understanding what you're accomplishing. And that's one thing that I learned in this country.
Interesting you say that, because I would think that Manila is a very fast-paced place to begin with. But you're saying India is even more fast-paced than this.
I would think so. And sometimes what happens is we end up confusing activity with achievement. So we think that because we're moving fast, we're achieving a lot. And I've seen that differences in cultures where sometimes there are cultures who understand how to take a step back and understand where they're really going. And this is one place which I think has the knack of it.
And since you've been living here for quite a while, I do have to ask, what is your favorite Filipino dish?
I've got many, and I think adobo is the cliched one you'll hear because the flavors are so prominent. But the two dishes that I personally really like, one is tinola. I think tinola is one of the most underrated healthy foods in the world because, it's such a nice stew with all the flavors that come in. That's one of my personal favorites here. And then the other one is sisig, which is a great way to actually do anything with the meats that you're cooking. So
right,
I really love it.
That's one of my favorite dishes here as well. So now in the Philippines, you're currently the EVP and Business Officer of Concentrix Philippines, which is, as we all know, a major player in the BPO industry here. Tell us a bit about the role. What does it entail? What do you do from day to day?
A typical day for me would be meeting a lot of clients who are coming in, meeting a lot of our staff going from one side to the other. And one of the things that we decided as a leadership team in the Philippines is to not sit in one office. So even when we do our team meetings, we actually go to different sites because, if you create a corporate office, then what you tend to do is you get to be in your ivory tower all the time and you don't realize what are the ground realities of the business. So we keep moving from one side to the other. So there isn't a typical day as such. It's all about, who will you engage with today? What are the new lessons you learn? And that's something that most of the leadership team in Concentrix, we love about our job because there isn't a typical day. Every day is a new learning. We service a lot of global clients out of the Philippines, and therefore lots of clients come and visit us because they want to see their operations, they want to actually meet their teams and understand how we're doing for them. We've got significant presence in this country. We've got 52 sites, as you rightly said. We are the largest private sector employer. And my job is to take care of the business, really, to understand how the business will grow, how we will perform, how will we be efficient as we perform the business, and more importantly, how we will transform the business and how we will take it to the next level. So that's what the role really entails.
What do you think excites you most about working for Concentrix?
I think the biggest thing that excites me working for Concentrix is the way we evolve with every change. If you look at this industry, over the last probably 24, 25 years we've been in existence, we've seen a number of changes coming in. We saw the first phase, which was just offshoring, which was just lifting and shifting work to places like Philippines and India and doing it cheaper because there was labor arbitrage. Then there was the phase of doing it better, because we could actually provide better experiences out of these places versus what was being provided onshore. So that was the second phase. How do you do it better? And we really evolved in that. Then it was all about using general automation and RPA as that came in because we had to make ourselves more efficient and create changes to the processes and really drive a better experience, outcome, and efficiency for our clients. And now the last couple of years, we've been focusing on Gen AI and how that transforms our business. So every time there is a new technology, there is a new change, there is a new business environment that gets created, it's great to see how Concentrix evolves as a player and takes the game to the next level.
Adapting business strategies to the local landscape is key to succeeding. How do you think Concentrix Philippines has managed to do that given our economic landscape?
Looking at the numbers, you can understand we are very bullish on Philippines. Almost 25% of our global workforce sits out of Philippines. So we operate out of 70 countries as a global player, but 25% of our workforce is in one country, which is Philippines. So you understand, how bullish we are on this single country. It is extremely critical to understand the local dynamics. In fact, one of the mantras that we have is global consistency, but local intimacy. And therefore, what we run is an extremely regionalized business, which means that each team and each region is self-sufficient to run their business. They understand what they need to do, the decision-making, the empowerment is completely localized. And therefore, we're able to drive decisions which are very, very close to the local cultures.
Right.
And what we've seen is a lot of businesses failing, and sometimes we failing in businesses where we've been a little bit away from the local culture. So that's extremely critical to us.
And from your unique perspective as a foreigner coming into the Philippine industry, what do you think makes our country stand out?
I think there are 2-3 themes which play in the favor of Philippines. The first big one is the affinity to the Western culture and the spoken English language. It is such a big differentiator because the communication between a Filipino and anywhere across the world is so seamless. It just gives a very different level of advantage to the country. The second big one is the median age. The median age is a big advantage because it's not just the power of young workforce in numbers, but also the mindset of a young workforce. It drives a lot of change. Younger people typically drive more change in a region. And having so many young people in the Philippines helps us drive a lot of change and evolve faster. And then the third big theme, I would say, is the ability to really have a service mindset for the globe. It is just so amazing to see how much empathy, as I keep going back to empathy and the way we look at a problem and make it our own. The Filipino people have this knack of really looking at the global problems and saying, how can we solve? How can we add value to it? And that's what really makes this place so strong for us.
Well, there are a lot of strengths. I'm sure you've also noticed a few key challenges and opportunities for growth here.
There are a few. I mean, every place has its set of strengths and opportunities.
Right.
One of the big ones that I've seen, so resilience is a very strong trait of Filipinos. But sometimes under pressure, we see that sometimes leaders lack resilience. And that's one part that we're working on very aggressively. How do we create more resilience in the leadership team under pressure? As the change comes in, as we evolve to a completely new kind of work type, how do we create more resilience under pressure, and how do we create more change management in the Filipino teams is something that we're working on at a global level.
So going back to digital innovations, I'm sure it's transformed financial services here in the Philippines. How has Concentrix Philippines managed to deal with these changes?
I'll talk about Concentrix and I'll talk about Philippines. So Concentrix is part of obviously the CX industry, and it's going through a significant change that is coming in with a lot of Gen AI penetration and digital penetration that is happening across the world. We've been trying to evolve ourselves the last couple of years in terms of how do we better prepare ourselves to execute in this change. What we've done is we've created 3 distinct pillars for Concentrix over the last couple of years. The first pillar is our traditional pillar of CX Ops, which is providing customer experience services, which are tech infused to our clients, which is a big part of our business. The second part that we've created is our tech services, which is how do we actually provide tech resources for various kinds of new technologies that are coming in. And the third platform that we've created is the products organization, because what we're seeing is that with a lot of these new technologies coming in, there are some really game-changing products that are easy to create, execute, and really add value to our clients' businesses. So we've set up this third arm, which is the Global Product Office, where we are driving a lot of new products for our clients, which is a completely new business set for us. From a Philippines perspective, if we look at digital penetration on the financial side, I think we've made a lot of progress over the last year and a half, but there's a lot more than we can do. Digital is still, I would say, underpenetrated from a financial perspective in the country. We are still a fairly large cash-based economy, and I think that will change. If we look at mirroring ourselves to some of the things that have happened across Asia, I mean, if you look at China, India, Vietnam, Malaysia, we can see that there is more digital penetration that has happened from a financial perspective. And the good part is that we're already on the journey. We recently created a partnership with GoTyme, and that's a big change for our game changers. They were all used to a traditional brick and mortar bank, a high street bank, and for them to transition, we were a little worried that will people actually accept this level of change, but the penetration rates are just amazing. It is just amazing to see how open people are to actually move towards a new model, which gives them more empowerment, which gives them more financial freedom, which gives them access to more products from a financial point of view. And I think a lot more like this will happen over the years.
I'm sure you get this question a lot, but does AI pose a threat to the industry?
AI is a technology which will help us evolve and change how we operate as a society. I'm not talking about a specific industry, but generally as a society. I mean, the way internet helped us evolve, the way we operate as a society, is the same impact that Gen AI will have at some stage. It's an evolving technology. It will create its own sets of opportunities as well as its own sets of disruptions. I mean, if you look at internet, for example, there were so many disruptions it created, but it also created more net new opportunities. I think the same way about Gen AI, that it will create a lot more opportunity and it will create disruption as well. I don't think Gen AI will take jobs away, net jobs away, because there's so much happening across the globe that we will continue to have growth in the economy and the job numbers. But definitely people who do not use Gen AI, they will be at a disadvantage versus people who are actually experts at using Gen AI.
Right. And is the industry here in the Philippines ready for the growth of AI?
We're in the process. See, it's a new technology. It came in the last couple of years, and therefore there's a significant amount of change management that we'll have to do. We have to get the workforce ready, which means there's a lot of training, there's a lot of reskilling that is required. And the industry, as well as Concentrix, is fairly focused on getting that done. For example, some of the new products that are coming out, our latest partnership that we had as an execution partner to Agentforce on the Salesforce side, which is a big Gen AI platform that has come out. We're training people around that. The Microsoft low-code, no-code solutions is another big one that we are focusing on and training people. Will we be ready in a matter of days? No, it will take us a few months to get people there. but the efforts are there, and we are in the process of that change.
From your own personal experience, what are the similarities and differences in terms of handling finances here and in India?
And each individual is different, but if you look at the macro numbers and look at these two economies, Philippines is a more consumption-based economy, so it makes it very circular. India is a more saving-based economy, and it is evolving to be a consumption-based economy.
Okay.
So that change is happening now with the younger Indians. But if you look at the traditional, or you go back like 10 years ago, you would see that India was a very saving-based economy and therefore was very reliant on exports and a few other things versus it being a consumption-based economy. So it's following the footsteps of Philippines, I would say, to become more consumption-based. I think the other big difference that I see is from a buyer behavior perspective is that India is a more value buying system versus Philippines is a more experience buying system. And what I mean by that is, and again, each individual is different, so I'm not trying to paintbrush everybody. But if you look at the macro numbers, in Philippines, you would see people spend on experience and they would be willing to pay a premium for experience versus an Indian consumer, generally speaking, would be more value driven and would ask for more value when they spend on something. So very different traits of how consumerism is coming across, and a part of that is also driven by the fact that India was more socialist if you go back like 20-30 years ago, versus Philippines was a more capitalist society. So those differences are very evident.
Very interesting. Do you notice any similarities?
Yes, there is one very key similarity between the two regions. Both consumers are very experimental. In fact, Filipinos rate the highest in terms of experimental quotient. If you look at some of these large tech companies, the first place they launch a new business or a new product is Philippines, because the uptake in Philippines is the highest across the globe. But generally speaking, in Asia, both India and Philippines are very high on experimental quotient. So which means that people are willing to actually pick up new products. I was talking about GoTyme earlier. It's a great example of how when we did the change, so many people raised their hands and said, yes, we would like to move and experiment with a new kind of banking system.
Right.
And that's very clear in India as well. I mean, if you look at the financial penetration or the digital banking penetration in India, it's very high because people are very experimental to actually look at new ways of doing things. I think the other similarity is the strong focus on the core culture as well as family orientation. I mean, if you look at both these places, they are very driven by being close to your family, having your roots in your culture. That differentiates these two places very significantly.
Right. Having so many Filipino employees now under you, what other financial behaviors have you observed?
If you look at the spending patterns of a typical Filipino workforce, you would see that the percentage of saving is relatively less. And we see more consumerism. I mean, people want to experience new products, people want to spend on their well-being, their experience. And that works extremely well from an economy perspective, because I think that makes the economy very resilient. Because if you are in a circular economy and if you create some value in part A and then you go spend it in part B, it kind of creates more value downstream as well. So it creates a lot of circular economy, but it also impacts the level of saving. Because obviously, as you look at the aging workforce and parts of the workforce which are now looking at retirement, which is a key aspect, you see that relatively speaking across the globe, there might be some bridges that we have to do from a retirement perspective. So that's probably a little bit of a behavior change that we need to drive.
Right. But in the past 8 years, have you noticed financial literacy among your employees improving?
Significantly. And it's exponential improvement rather than linear improvement the last probably 1 decade. And there are 2-3 reasons for that. I think one is the penetration of social media. We're becoming more and more global in our behaviors because people are able to see and experience what other cultures are doing and pick up the best parts of it. So when they're seeing, for example, that stock markets are a good way to create wealth over a period of time, we are seeing more movement towards that. When we are seeing, when people see that across cultures, digital penetration on financials is becoming bigger and bigger, which helps the providers cut their costs down and pass that back to the consumers. The consumers are more willing to experiment on that. Now, in some cases, we picked up some bad parts as well, but that's part of life.
Right.
But generally speaking, it's done a lot of good for us.
So I know your company is big on helping your employees with financial wellness as well. Tell us about some of the programs you offer.
We look at it in 2, 3 large buckets. The first part is when you are in need in an emergency, because that's a critical time of need, and that is where we feel a majority of our game changers get into the trap of debt. So how do we avoid that? Because that's a big area of focus. We've got special funds for any climate related issues, or if you've got a fire that destroys your house, you can actually ask for assistance, which you don't even need to pay back to the company. So we've got programs like that. We've got a very strong emergency loan program. And in the times of emergency, you can actually ask for a lump sum money, which you can give back to the company completely interest free. The whole objective of this pillar is to make sure that you don't fall into the debt trap and you don't end up paying a huge amount of interest on the capital
Which
that you borrow.
happens to a lot of Filipinos.
It's a big problem. The second one is driving the saving behavior. How do you create an environment where people realize that, there has to be a small bank for the rainy day, that kind of concept. So a lot of focus and attention on that, running programs, training people what they can do differently in driving that saving behavior, and also enabling them. And how we enable that is through our scale. As you rightly said, we're the largest private sector employer in the country. It gives us a lot of scale to negotiate. So, for example, when they're doing their grocery shopping, so grocery shopping typically is 20-30% of your monthly salary budget. And if you can create a 10% efficiency on that through better negotiation, you give back a small saving to your staff members, to your game changers. So we've got grocery shops right here in our offices and 7-Elevens, which give us 12% discount to all our staff members. So that 12% on a base of 20-30% that you spend out of your monthly compensation gives you 2-3% back to actually put into savings. Similarly, a lot of other products that people spend on, how do you create that enablement so that they are able to save a little bit from the market prices and are then able to reinvest it back into saving programs. And then the third is giving them access to very strong saving programs through partnerships, for example, with your bank, which is GoTyme, as well as some of the traditional banks, and giving them good opportunities which are relatively safer, which give good return, and which have lower expense ratios, so that the benefit is more passed back to the person who's saving versus going to the middleman. You create that ecosystem for them, and that helps them get into that behavior.
I know Concentrix also has a strong community spirit with your pledge donation program. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that program?
So the pledge donation program actually came into being just as a discussion point when 4 or 5 of us were sitting and just talking about what we can do differently in the company. And while we were investing a lot into our communities, and this has been our DNA, we've been investing a lot into the communities that we operate in, there was no program where we could personally donate something back. And what we realized is that if we create a small system where everybody has access to say that, okay, out of my payroll, you can deduct as less as 10 pesos every payroll cycle, all the way up to probably 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 pesos, depending on what you can contribute to. We have the power of numbers, and even if people start donating 10 pesos every payroll quarter,
It makes a difference.
It will make a big difference, and it will create a big corpus. And that's how the program started. It started very small, but when we started looking at the success stories where, hundreds of people who were going through hardships actually got access to those grants and were able to help. And they started coming up and say, now it's my time to give back. So it's like pay it forward. So they started contributing, and it started becoming a movement. The other aspect that we realized is that if we start doing a few different things to drive more contributions, so we did something which was a basketball match with the NBA legends, where people just bought tickets and all the money got into the pledge fund. And the match was so much fun to watch.
I can imagine.
and we matched that contribution from an employer perspective. So it became a fairly large kitty, and hundreds of people are getting significant support out of it. Scholarship for dependents was the other thing that we started working on. And a number of people, mostly children of our staff, are now getting scholarships out of that pledge program. So it's actually funding the education of next generation.
Another one of your initiatives is the Think Human Fund. Can you tell me more about that initiative?
Yeah. So the Think Human Foundation came over to Concentrix when we combined with another very large brand, WebHelp, last year. And this was the non-profit arm of WebHelp, which was focused on helping the communities that we operate in. So when the two companies combined, and we had such a significant presence in the Philippines, we asked for support to actually help the Filipino communities as well. This year alone, we've actually given grants worth 29 million pesos in three large areas: youth empowerment, education, and clean water, because these were the three big themes that we saw were very, very critical for the development and success of Filipino people in general and the communities that we work in. So that's been a big, big, big focus area for us. The other big focus area for us has been tree plantation. Our goal is to plant 500,000 trees in the Philippines over the next 2 years, and we are very, very confident we'll be able to exceed that goal.
Speaking of youth empowerment, given that you've grown Concentrix Philippines to what it is today, for those looking to advance in their careers, for the youth looking to advance in their careers, what is the biggest financial lesson you think you've learned from your experience that you think could help them?
I think the biggest lesson I would say is, especially if you're very young and you haven't started investing yet, is to think about and learn the concept of compounding. It's literally one of the wonders of the world. I mean, the first time I looked at the equations of compounding and the percentages and how soon you can actually grow your money over a period of time was very fascinating. And the reason I'm not talking about saving or any other things is because once you learn what compounding is and what it can do, if you start early as young, you will automatically be pulled into, okay, I need to start doing some savings so that I can start investing, because it is literally amazing. So do spend some time on the area of compounding, how your money can grow, and the rule of 72. It's a very fascinating concept.
So in every episode, we play a little game called This or That. We'll give you two options and you say the first thing that comes to your mind. Human support or AI support?
Human in the loop AI support.
Can you expound on that for us?
Yeah. So the way we look at AI is not about changing what humans are doing, but empowering what humans are doing. It's about making them more empowered to support the end consumer. And that is why we say it's human in the loop and tech-led, because you're leading with technology, but you're putting human in the loop so that your experiences are great.
Flexibility or structure?
Depends on the situation. If you're in a critical situation, flexibility. If you're stable, then obviously structure.
Teamwork or independence?
Again, depends on the individual. If you've got somebody who's got individual brilliance and their personality type is such that they actually want to focus deep onto a concept without being disturbed, it's always about individual. I'm not individually brilliant at all. I fundamentally believe it. So for me, it's my team. It's completely my team.
Filipino food or Indian food?
Depends on the mood. Depends on the mood and depends on the availability, because it's not easy to get Indian spices, especially good Indian spices in
Yes, I
Philippines.
can imagine, but good answer. Save money or invest money?
I think depends on the stage of life you're in. My advice is that if you do not have a corpus, and if you do not have financial independence, and what I mean by financial independence is that if you cannot survive the next 12 months without creating a penny of cash, then saving has to be key for you. I don't care if you live on coupons and if you live on, if you literally spend very little on your experiences, etc., till the time you get to that corpus where you feel that, yes, now I can survive the next 12 months, even if I do not have a job or a sustained income. When you get to a level where you feel a little more comfortable, you should not be killing yourself. Then you should be actually investing in your knowledge, investing in your experiences, investing in a lot of other areas which are very critical for you to grow as a human being.
And before we go, what is your one-liner money motto that you believe everyone should live by?
Focus on the little things. But because if you focus on the little things, the big things will fall in place automatically. And it's so true for money. If you can stop the small leaks, the big leaks will never occur. And then therefore you have to fix the leaking bucket syndrome very quickly so that your bucket grows.
Thank you, Sir Amit. Very inspiring words. And thank you, everyone, for joining us here at Speaking of Money. Tune in again next time for more beautiful conversations and inspiring insights with the successful people of today. To never miss an episode, click subscribe and hit that notification bell. Till next time.